Steve, it looks like we're live and on the air. How are you, mate?
Good, good. How are you? You look like you're in the marshes of Scotland
This
somewhere.
is
Like
yeah. See, this is my mist. This is actually a photo out my front door. Well, I'm soon going to have them all glassed in, and so this will be my view in the mornings. And this is literally shot from my bed. That was
yeah, very
me
nice.
sitting up with a camera out my these are big, roller doors, which are soon going to be replaced with glass, and that's the mist. And if you can see just over here, that's the ocean. An ocean doesn't come out that clear. It's it's a lot more visible here in person, but that is the ocean out there. And then this is all
Yeah,
mountain range through here. So, and yeah, this is the mist that gets trapped in this kind of, it's more damp land down there. Nobody can ever build on that because it's a flood risk area. So
yeah.
theoretically, it can never be built out in that regard. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Very cool, very cool. It actually looks it's way better than my background because it's legit.
Yeah. Well, yours is legit. The photo was taken somewhere, right?
Yeah, it's not the view out my window though. It's the view
Alrighty.
of my wall.
Yeah. I
Who
like
we got
that.
online?
Yeah. Who's with us today?
I gotta
Give us a
switch.
holler in the chat. We've got a bunch of folks I can see joining us now. Who's with us? Let us know.
It seems like we got a few things to chat about today. Again, I think the whole virus thing has kind of slowed things down with Microsoft, slowed things down with everybody. It's kind of tough sometimes to get good content. I mean, they're really not firing off a whole bunch of crazy stuff right now. Everything's kind of in a holding pattern, but
Yeah.
there's still a few things to talk about.
Yeah, you're right. It's definitely in a holding pattern, right? We're not hearing much news come out from Microsoft, and I think, we're not jumping on the PGI calls, which are the product group interaction calls. We've got Frank, we've got Greg on there, Thomas and Scott. How are you,
Yeah,
gentlemen? That's half the people that are in the session have said hello.
yeah.
That's
The men
that's
forward.
awesome.
The men came forward.
Yeah.
Come on,
So,
ladies.
so I was saying PGI, right? Nothing much has happened from a product group interaction perspective, and
They probably don't know what a PGI is.
well, you can explain that.
So, product group interaction is something that Microsoft does with MVPs, where they'll invite MVPs to an online, usually a Teams meeting with some product managers working on something, and they'll go over new features, new capabilities, and we'll tear it to shreds, tell them it's horrible, and they'll launch it anyway. That's basically how that works. But we haven't seen it. It's like they do these product group we want to get your feedback on this, but by the time you're sitting and listening to them talk about it, this thing is done, dusted, ready to launch, and nothing that any of us says is going to change any of that. So they're just seeking agreement at that point. Not really seeking input. But there haven't been many of those. I think everybody at Microsoft's working remote too. So I mean, I think that we're seeing kind of a lack of communication from them. That's probably driven mostly by that.
Yeah. Oh, Lindsay, how are you, Lindsay? EY's join us. Mark's join us. Alex is online as well. So a few more.
Great.
Oh, Lindsay's got a beer poured.
Perfect.
Excellent. Yeah, I would have thought you would have had a beer by now. I've just finished a coffee, being that it's so early in the morning here.
Yeah, it's 4 p.m. here in Eastern time zone of the U.S., so a little early for me to beer, but I'll be getting one here.
Is it?
Well, I don't know. I have a personal rule. I don't want to drink anything before 5 on a weekday or before noon on a weekend, because I think if I do either of those things, then I'm clearly an alcoholic. However, I can drink as much as I want after those times.
Yeah.
So that's
very
my
good
rule on being an alcoholic.
John has also joined us. I don't know if you connect with John on Facebook, but that guy is a phenomenal singer and guitar player, and in the Power Platform community as well. Up there in Scotland, every now and again, I can wake up in the morning. He's just coming online in Scotland, And you know what? I'm impressed with you, John, is the number of beers that you can consume across a single song. I'm pretty sure I saw you polish 2 the other day on one song. You can definitely take it down quicker than I can. I'm like very impressed.
The skill is not how many beers you can drink with a song. It's what the song still sounds like after you've had those beers.
Mate,
There's the skill.
he's the kind of guy you could sit in a pub and listen to for hours.
So we got some coming up. You were talking about beforehand. Want to jump in?
Well, so last week I was it last week or earlier this week? No, it was last week. I had a call with Alyssa Taylor, and that was to chat about a podcast that she's coming on with me to chat. And of course, she owns the Microsoft Business Application Summit, right? And can you believe it? That's 1 week away. It's next week is Microsoft Business Application Summit. So if you're listening here and you haven't
I don't know if it's just I've cut out or you've cut out, but we'll see. See if you pop back in or I pop back in. Something's got to happen. Who can you people hear, me or him? Which one of us froze? It's like the whole thing froze. So I'm not frozen. Boom, here he comes. He's coming back. There he is. He's back. He's back.
I mean, that was a full crash. Like, I don't know. Are we back online? Let's say the warning.
It kept going
down.
Yep, it kept going live, and they could hear me. You just disappeared.
Wow. Let's try sending that again. Error. We got an error. Did the link go through in the chat?
No. Okay. Maybe that's how you crashed it.
Yeah, perhaps. There you go. I sent it again. Let's hope.
Yeah, at that time.
Okay, so there it is. So Embass, you want to get involved in that event if you can, wherever you are in the world. At least if you register as well, there's a good chance that you're going to get access to all the video content after that. And so therefore get up there, get a registration, even though you might not go see this live, because this is where everything is going to be happening for this event. So highly recommend that you connect with that. Now, the next big deal is this weekend. And that is, once again, I'll post it into chat. This weekend, there you go, is a link to it, which is to Eventbrite for the Microsoft Business Application Summit, Hack4Good. Now, you and I were there last year, Steve, for this live event. You'll see if you look at that link, pretty sure you're in that big group photo there. And I think there are 75 odd people involved in that hack last year. Well, we're closing in on 250 people for this hack, this virtual hack, which, as you can see, is running across 3 time zones. So if you're not in a team, you can just go up there, submit and say, I want to be put in a team. You'll be put in a team and somebody in your time zone, or you can just come and bring a team. So there's room for more. It kicks off Saturday, Sunday, this weekend. Microsoft's going to be involved in the award ceremony, etc., the winners, that type of thing, like we've seen in the past. I've got the honorable role of judging the APAC winners submissions. It's across Australia, New Zealand, a few other countries that sit in that time zone. But with the 3 time zones, we're hoping we pick up, a lot of different places. So there should be crossovers, even though it might say APAC, EMEA, etc. Think of it more as a time zone, and therefore, is it in a time that I can hack on the Saturday or Sunday? And I think this is going to be fantastic in bringing, once again, the community together that feel very locked down at the moment, right? Feel very much, disconnected. I think this is going to be a great way to bring that kind of connectedness.
So first of all, I think that you might have put in the wrong link for the MBAS. It's a Zoom link.
Do you know what I put in there? I can see why a whole bunch of people just try to jump into the Zoom session.
They're all clicking on it. But
I've got
so
security
how
on.
will
There,
this,
there you go. There you go. There's the
there we
MBAS
go.
one.
So I know at last year's Hack for Good, obviously there was a big room. There
Yep.
were several tables set up, a couple of laptops, people gathered around the table, all doing their, work. How does that work? How do you going to do that virtually? Has everybody got a Zoom
Well,
client?
yeah. Something. So I'm not across the exact technical details. They've been distributed by the leads for each country or each time zone. But yeah, as you can imagine, you'll have your camera on. You'll have in a team session, just might be minimized, but your camera's on. It'll be like a live session. You can ask questions to your teammates, but you'd just be inside your own team there for that type of process. And then you once
Who's
again.
providing that? Who's providing the team's
Well,
atmosphere?
Microsoft are involved in this. So as you can imagine,
Good,
in the past, they've always provided a ton of environments and things like that.
good.
What we've typically done is spun up an environment that the team leader gets. The team then has, let's say, 10 active accounts on it, and you connect in that account, and that accounts for the period of the hack. So that's the way it's been done in the past. And that gives you like Azure resources, that gives you Office 365 resources, and gives you Power Platform resources. So you've kind of got the full tool set. And of course, because it comes with Office 365, you'd have your own Teams environment straight away. So the team lead would then coordinate and bring everybody into that team.
Didn't I only just hear about this idea to do this recently, very recently?
So that's the thing is that, our friends in the United Kingdom, particularly, folks like Lee, Lucy, and are two names that jumped in mind. Andrew Walsh, he's another one that's heavily involved in it.
Huntingford, I'm sure.
And of course Huntingford, and of course, Chris, as well as Lucy, now both working for Microsoft. Anna's another one. They're all working for Microsoft. So I think they can get and they've all been very heavily community focused as well in the past. So they have the ability to probably get the resources, get the right folks, in the room, so to speak, from Microsoft's engagement. And it's going to get airtime at MBAS. They're looking already for a trailer video to be part of the broadcast for MBAS off this Hack for Good. So yeah, you can basically get on main stage, if you create something exceptional. And so what happens, the tool hack process is you hack for a day, and at the deadline you have to submit a video. And I've been involved in a global hack before as well, a bit different than the live session. So you submit a video, and it's very particular about the length of that video. So don't, in my judging, if they say the videos can be no more than 5 minutes and you send 7.5 minutes, I'm told that I'm only allowed to judge the first 5 minutes.
Wow.
Right? So, because they got to try and create a level playing field.
There's rules. You got to follow the rules.
Yeah. And the biggest thing that I've seen let people down in the past is that they don't allocate out different roles and responsibilities for each team member. In other words, remember, the video at the end is going to be your showcase piece. And this is going to be screen recording, maybe you in front of the cameras and things like that. So people that leave that with half an hour to go and think, oh, let's just pull it together. And then they have audio issues, and and it looks like a shit show at the end, even though their product might be really good. So it's kind of like they can't present their product well because they just didn't coordinate that last little piece. So make sure you've got somebody thinking about how that story, that it's going to be in the time limit, length, because that's all the judges have to go on in a virtual hack like this to make a call whether your product meets the objectives of the hack, and really look at that list, because every point is awarded based on it aligning with the rules of that engagement. So I really stress the importance of doing that.
At the live hack, you had 5 minutes to actually stand up in front and present, and maybe do a demo or do some sort of presentation. You could tell that they didn't spend enough time on the most important aspect of the entire thing, which was the presentation.
Yeah.
Somebody's over there, working on font sizes or some crap, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wasting time there instead of, focusing on that final present. It's almost like you should start with a video and then,
Yeah,
go
yeah.
build what you did a video of and edit the video to fit later. But those are the ones that win, are the videos, or the
Totally.
win.
So here's the thing is, let's see if I can find this other link. And this is just promoting a different hack that recently happened here in New Zealand. And I'll see if I can find this. No, that's not it.
Hello to Cheryl and Allison and Danny joining us.
Excellent. Yeah, can you just tread water while I just go find this link a second?
Yeah, while he's looking, one of the things I don't know how many of you read my blog. Hopefully everybody does. If you don't, well, there's something wrong with you. But in this kind of dry time, I've been looking for some interesting topics that I can go on attack mode with. So if any of you guys got any things that you'd like to have me write about that are familiar with my writing style, which is not common or normal, I think, let me know some topics that you'd like me to try and attack, because I've been too busy to think about any. I keep writing posts and then realize just before I'm about to post that thing that it seemed awfully familiar, and realized that I wrote that fucking post already.
So yeah, what is your normal technique for writing? How do you come up and keep your content fresh like you do?
I mean, frankly, I don't have a schedule, as you well know, because I don't have a schedule. It's funny because I remember you talking to me about the pods and the things that you're very much about schedule. You're very much about, I'm going to do this on a Tuesday morning at 7. Tuesday morning at 7. And I've never been very good at that. If I force myself to try and make something happen on a schedule, I can't come up with any ideas. So it ends up being pretty random, and sometimes I'll blast out like 3 in a row, boom, 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 because they just ideas have popped up. And usually it's shit that I'm encountering, dealing with a product team, or dealing with customers. So you just realize, this is fucked up. This needs some attention. We'll reach out to Microsoft as we always do, to kind of point out some stuff, but if we're not getting satisfaction from Microsoft that they're putting enough eyeballs on that issue, I don't have any problem, writing a post and sticking another 10,000 pair of eyeballs on that issue. Then they usually move.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so let me just read this out here. What does it say? Within the Microsoft community, we're in an awesome position and could really help a number of organizations in these troubled times. Let's put our heads together to try and come up with some epic solutions to assist in dealing with the repercussions of COVID-19. Now, here's the cool thing. I just put it swiftly there into the link there. Start selling online in 15 minutes for free. And this here was another hack that happened in New Zealand recently. And if you go to the About section, you will see there 3 lads, Matt, Walt, and Will. It's interesting. I can see, if you look at Will, do you think he might be an MVP? He's not in our category, but do you notice the VP just on his profile picture on the back wall there? So I don't know if that's the case, but these guys, just in our 4 weeks of lockdown, have set up this site, and they are rapidly getting local businesses all over New Zealand to go and set up shop, because yesterday we went to what's called level 3 for COVID-19. So we've been at level 4, which was stay at home. You're not allowed to leave your property unless it's to go and get groceries or go to a doctor. And if you did, there's been 2,000 arrests, a bunch of people jailed for breaching that. So when New Zealand make rules, it's not like if you like. It's not like America where, get out and protest and do whatever the fuck you want if you disagree when you're trying to contain a virus. In New Zealand, when we make rules, we back them up with how it's going to be if it's a life or death situation. And that's the line that we've been taking. We just went to level 3 yesterday, which means that e-commerce businesses are allowed, or in other words, you're allowed to run non-contact based business. In other words, contactless. You've not allowed to use cash. You've got to use an electronic payment of some sort, whether it's deposit to somebody's bank account, no checks. By the way, we've had no checks in New Zealand for years. That's still, cash is very limited. So we have what's called PayWave. You tap and go. So therefore, you're not even putting in your PIN. They've increased the PayWave limit in New Zealand to $200 a transaction without needing a PIN. So therefore, like if you're into stealing people's credit cards, you can at least get 200 off by tapping it at the moment.
Nice.
But what I like here, the Swiftly.nz, these guys set up and just made it real easy for mum and pop type businesses to get their products up there, whether it's selling coffees. I had my first real coffee yesterday in like 5 weeks. Oh, amazing. And so I went to one of these local, this is actually from this local business, a local coffee shop. You can go up there and order and everything. And at the moment, you can't do even the payment, but they're saying in the next week's release, they're going to release a payment. Now, if you think about Hack4Good, this is a classic example of a solution that could impact thousands of businesses and get them online really quickly, really smartly. And, you know, these guys have brought their expertise together, some in UX design, some in infrastructure, you know, to scale, make sure, you know, there's no crossover with those listings. But I think this is an example of a fantastic way that, you know, people can go out and build e-commerce sites and stuff like that, but any small business would be freaked out of the idea of building an e-commerce site, right? Some of them struggle with the website. The best they've got is their page on LinkedIn or on Facebook. You know, we're talking about small businesses. They've made it really simple. Take your photo with your iPhone of your product, put it up here, put a session, bang, post. That's it. It's like mega simple. And I think this is really the type of stuff that the Hack4Good can produce more of. There's going to be, of course, people that come in Australia. There's been a big one that's come out for to track, you know, COVID-19. I see in the local,
stuff.
in the local MVP group, a whole bunch of MVPs have been involved in that, and it's gone massive. Like in the last 24 hours, it's had over 1 million downloads. This app. So once again, a bunch of MVPs in Aussie just kicking it, right? Just come together, brought their skills together, and create some amazing tech. I think this Hack4Good is going to do the same thing, right? Allow people to come up with new ideas, new ways of engaging that are going to allow people to weather the potential economic, well, not potential, the obvious economic storm that we are faced with. So get involved. I think it's good times.
By the way, I think that that background poster behind Walt, you do realize there's another commonly used meaning of MVP, particularly in the startup space, right?
Yeah, MVP product, a minimum viable product, you mean?
I'm going to guess that's what that probably is for on the wall behind him, is the minimum viable product.
Could well be.
You know, it's interesting. Here's another startup with basically 3 kids. You know,
but like they've done it in the last 4 weeks, man. They've done it in the last 4 weeks just of hacking it together. I doubt they started off with a business plan. They just started by hacking a product together to meet a need, which I would say is probably going to set them all up in business.
Yeah, they started off with an idea instead of a business plan and just started building it. Yeah.
No, very, very exciting, I feel. Very exciting.
With no fees. Yeah. Free forever. Now that's a dangerous thing to put out there as a startup.
well, yeah, totally. But the thing is, the next step of it, right? The next step is going to be, I would say they'll pick up on credit card transaction fees if they offer that as of next week.
Yeah.
Right. They'll pick it up on the payment gateway or create a premium tier when people want to turn it into a full e-commerce store. I think it's smart. I think it's timely. I wish I had the idea. I love it, right? It's guys coming together and creating something in the gap that's currently in the market.
Yeah, and you can see there's certainly a lot of type of products that would benefit. Certainly not a services model. It look like.
It's for all the mums and pop stores out there. You know, the cafes, the small businesses, the ones that, you know, they're not creating a global franchise or anything like that. They just run their local store. They make enough to, you know, make ends meet, and nothing more. That's it. That's it.
I remember it. So last year's Hack4Good was it specific to an organization? Was it like Red Cross or something? Was it supposed to be for Red Cross, or was it?
It was for NGOs or non-for-profits.
I got you. And this one, basically, the guiding light is having to do with
COVID-19.
virus related.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
will
So
be very interested to see some of the ideas that come out of that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you
No,
know, I mean, I think there's lots of folks that have had some ideas. It's one of those interesting things where there's some ideas that in hindsight would have been really brilliant, but like the time has passed. I was talking to somebody a while back that was talking about making the face mask, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, and there was a point in time where you probably could have popped up your little Etsy store or maybe something like this, selling homemade masks and sold a shit ton of them. But it's too late to do that now because there's already a shit ton of people out there trying to sell these little masks. But it's
Yeah.
not a huge business opportunity idea, but the idea that there's a point in time where if you move, you can make something happen. But if you wait until it's obvious that the problem is obvious to everyone,
Yeah.
well, it's too late for your solution.
Yeah.
So then it comes into, okay, what's a better solution? And that would be what I would expect to see out of this is not any potentially new ideas, but maybe better versions of ideas of things that were needed as a result of this.
Yeah.
That contact tracing stuff seems like it's going to be interesting. But the other thing is, if this whole thing ends up dying out in the next month or two for some reason or another, then then what? I guess this will all be maybe for the next virus, right?
Well, the next 4 years, right? As in, it seems, I don't know if you saw the stuff from Bill Gates, but it seems to be a 4-year cycle that we get SARS or all the different, bird flu, whatever. It seems a 4-year cycle. This one just happened to be ones that kicked everybody in the ass. So the worry is that if this is this bad, is there a risk of something worse, in the future? Because I don't think the mortality rate has been anywhere near as high for this as what other viruses have been. The problem with this one has been the contagious nature of it. So I think if you got the contagious nature of this one combined with one that was super deadly, I think, it would be in crazy times.
Well, the other thing is, when you look at things like the flu and stuff like that kills a bunch of people, we never do shit about the flu. We don't do any distancing. We don't wear any masks. We didn't close any restaurants. We just went about our business, and a bunch of people died from that. Well, now this one, because it's contagious,
but like you guys have mass shootings every 5 minutes over there, and you don't do anything about your gun laws or anything like that either, do you? So
hey, I have never shot anybody. So, I've never shot anybody on purpose or even accidentally.
Hey, those in the chat session with us, and we've got a bunch of folks on there. Can you just give us a shout out if you're involved in the Hack for Good or MBAS? Just type in MBAS, MBAS if you're in that, or Hack if you're in the Hack for Good. Can you see any coming through there? I'm actually doing two things here, testing my connection, seeing who's involved.
It'll take a couple of seconds for them to hear that. Remember, we got a little bit.
Valid.
There's Scott's at MBAS, Cheryl's in both.
Okay, so obviously I've got nothing, no chat anymore on my side because I'm not seeing any of that.
Art's at MBAS, Lindsay's at MBAS, Cheryl's at both. Tomas is at MBAS, Danny's at MBAS. So it looks like lots of folks are definitely doing the MBAS.
Okay, is Danny not in the Hack for Good? I thought Danny would be in the Hack for Good.
He just said MBAS.
What's ROFL? I know it stands for Roll on the Floor Laughing, but Prashant, is that what he's up to? Not doing it? I see Chris has joined us. Oh yeah, look at that, man. I've obviously been
Cheryl's got her team there.
Wow, team's got good on you, Cheryl, getting a team in. Anyone else got a team? Anyone's a team lead for one of these? That'd be fantastic.
Yeah,
what were you gonna say?
So you're judging, so you're not going to be involved in any teams, obviously, this year.
Yeah. I had blue team last year, right? Yeah. And in fact, if you look on that photo there, I'm lying at the very bottom with a blue wig on. I don't know. Every time I've been involved, I've had a different wig. When I was judging for the Global Hack last time, I had I was sent a unicorn wig. So I don't know if I need to bring out the unicorn again out of storage. I've since then been given a little blonde girl's wig with ponytails. Will Dorrington definitely keeps me in my supply of wigs. So let's see what we'll do.
It is an aspect of your personality that causes me to question. So are you planning to do a video announcement like of the winners and that sort of stuff?
That's typical, right? Is that we post a video, the video goes out of, who wins regionally, and then the person that's going to do the final judging across like the winning submissions, they are then going to be judged by Microsoft in Seattle.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
nice.
yeah. So like last time, Charles Lamanna on the Global Hack, Charles Lamanna was the, did the final video and announced the winner. I think we've got Cunningham doing the final on this one. I think that's who they've organized. Yeah.
Good.
Mark Cunningham's
kind of grown on me.
Fetish.
Cunningham's kind of grown on me. When he first popped on the scene, he was really awkward. He seemed very nervous, and I was not that impressed. But he seems to have over the past couple of years, he's kind of come into his own. He's still a little corny, but
he's awesome. He's awesome. I love it. Like when he's pumped and he's on stage, he's got so much energy. And what I like about all these guys, they seem to be much more down to earth rather than necessarily politically correct all the time. And I like that. Like keeps it real rather than, often you get a lot of people, in the past have been very sanitized in their comments, or, they've been bit in the ass, or legal has definitely had a big controlling stake. I don't see, I'm pretty sure legal's still very much involved in the way the back office of Microsoft runs, but much more, that's not obvious anymore,
I think there's been definitely a cultural shift. We know there's been a cultural shift in business applications group. We've got from the prior regime before James, it was all locked down. It was only really very limited information. And when James came in, he brought in these young guys, which I don't think you could necessarily even control if you wanted to. And when you're bringing in guys like Charles, Ryan, Steven, these guys are the ones that are coming up with the future product of this company. They're the ones coming up with the ideas. They're the ones making it happen. You probably don't have that much control over these guys.
Yeah.
Because the last thing you want is to have them say, well, you know what, fuck you, I'll go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So there's probably a degree of, as long as they're not burning the house down, let them talk. Because you could tell when I'm talking to Charles on the live calls, he'll go off script and talk about something that's NDA. I mean, but he'll just make that decision on the spot that, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that, this, that, and the other, just because he feels like it. And in the past, I mean, they would have probably fired somebody for that. But not even a thought that they're going to do anything like that. They're very dependent on this whole generation, which is frankly younger than I think anybody that's been in leadership roles has been in business applications group before.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I guess you have to give Phillips credit for, making these decisions. I'm sure he's the one who hired all these people.
Yeah. Yeah.
He made the decision that, I'm gonna go younger and I'm gonna give you the rope, and get on out there. And it's been, I mean, not without its problems, obviously. These guys get bored quick and sometimes move on to something before they finish the last thing.
Yeah. But it's part of the nature of SaaS, right? Is that in a 3-year life cycle build of products that you had in the past, there can be a lot of navel gazing and let's make sure we get the message right. And where I think that when you're in a very agile driven environment where you're releasing new stuff every month, new features, new enhancements, that type of thing, there's got to be an element of sometimes when you're operating at speed, a mistake gets amplified massively because it's happening at speed. But then also the recovery can be pretty quick and bang, because you're operating at speed, you're on to the next thing. And that thing that, everyone freaked out about is now well in the rear vision mirror,
Yeah, I mean they're like a 5,000 person startup.
Yeah.
They've kind of got the attitude of a startup, but with 5,000 smart people behind it and engineers and everybody out there. And to think that you can move a group, and even inside of Microsoft, that's a pretty small group, 5,000 people,
Yeah.
but to be able to move so quickly and pivot so quickly and launch stuff so quickly with a group that big is pretty phenomenal. I think that was never ever going to happen before. Now, granted, they
Yeah.
didn't have that many people, but you would think the more people you have, the harder it is to pivot quickly, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But they've kind of shown the opposite. It feels like Catalyst. What was Catalyst? I remember Catalyst.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Do you
So,
know?
yeah, Catalyst is, Alyssa Taylor did a video announcing Catalyst at the start of last year, which is a team of Microsoft veterans. Most of them have got 25 years in Microsoft each. I did a podcast with them, the three guys that make the Catalyst team, which actually report directly into, who's the head of sales?
Hayden?
Hayden. And so what these guys do, they use human-centered design or design thinking principles combined with the Microsoft business applications, and they go in and they tackle big business problems, not from a tech point of view, but from a business end user. So, well, they have things in there called journey mapping, for example. How does a customer really engage with us? Now let's build the tech out behind that to suit it, rather than, the old model of Microsoft is how many licenses can we sell in here and let other people figure out whether there's a business solution. And so what
Yeah.
these guys go in, right, and, they work a lot with, Satya level accounts. So ones that Satya attends. And so they go in and run these design thinking workshops, which are really workshops that are run around observation, as in how a business is running. And then with that observing it, and all the knowledge of the tech that could support it, being able to go back to the business and go, okay, here's how we could absolutely blow your business to the next level. And so they go in, do a lot of engagement before producing any implementations or anything like that. So what Danny's talking about there is that Catalyst team have been involved with Coca-Cola and doing a big project, and it's come out this week that Coca-Cola have announced a 5 or 6 year agreement with Microsoft for all the strategic implementation to move them. It's really digital transformation at its finest, without the
Yeah.
bullshit, without the fluff. But dropping out, guys. Okay, EY's on
Yeah.
his way
Bye.
out. There you go. And so this is the kind of thing that the Catalyst team are doing, and I think this is the first big, massive public announcement of that Catalyst team involved in landing a big corporate account. There've been for some time. There's been a lot of talk about Pepsi, and Pepsi's. They were poster childs of last MBAS. And all their use of the Power Platform, something like 5,000 apps or something they've got on the Power Platform, just at one organization. Now you've got Coke here. I guarantee that Coke is going to be one of the big headline stories at MBAS, right? It'll be one of the big, look at what Coca-Cola, one of the oldest companies around, that how they're going and transforming their business using the Power Platform. That's my guess. I haven't read the articles, but the Catalyst team were massive parts of that driving focus.
It's interesting. It's not dissimilar to what I think a lot of us do with just normal customers, not these necessarily the big ones. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Gus Gonzalez, our buddy Gus, has his podcast that he does, and he did one recently on solution architect, being a world-class solution architect.
Yeah.
And obviously he just recently had read a book, because he kept referring back to some passages in a book that he was enamored with. But it was interesting how, and I find myself doing this just because I can't help myself with a customer. They call up and they're looking for a business application. And I guess the easy thing to do would be to say, okay, what do you want it to do? Okay, fine. That's going to take this much time, and this, that, and the other. But I just can't handle stupid, I guess. So when somebody's explaining to me what they want it to do, I'm like, why do you want it to do that way? Well, that's It's because that's how we sell this. Well, then I can't help myself but to go into, why do you sell it that way?
Yeah.
I mean, you suddenly we're not even talking about the solution anymore. Now we're talking about your sales process. Why are you selling your product that way? It definitely pivots over into more of a business consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you say, it's observational. I mean, I'm just listening to somebody tell me about their business and realizing that that business could be a better business regardless of software. You just need to, why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it that way? And it's surprising how many customers will end up, kind of pivoting their business model first, and then you go build the software to support it. So it sounds like a kind of the mini version of what Catalyst is doing for these big customers. Go in, observe how they're operating, make recommendations, probably not unlike one of these big consulting firms, but and then let's go, create some software to support those motions.
Yeah. I think, as in what's happened with Catalyst as well, Microsoft were doing it in-house. Now they're training partners around the world on the process and technique. The problem is, or the challenge, not necessarily a problem, the challenge is that human-centered design is a very touchy, feely process. In other words, you get people, with Lego blocks, and you're talking about software and you're building out something, I remember a project I was on in Hong Kong where we brought in our human-centered design team out of the company I was working for. And what happened was sometimes people can't articulate how they think about technology, right? Because they just don't have necessarily the vocabulary for it. And so, for example, in this, I'm in a big boardroom with one of the biggest watch companies in the world, based on market share. And you've got all these representation in the room. You've got IT represented, marketing, you've got sales, you've got the leadership of the company, all the who's who for this organization are in the room, and you're running a workshop with this diversity of people present. And what we did is that we handed out everybody a little bag of Lego. And in that Lego was some yellow, red, and black bricks where you could build a duck, right? And here was the simple process that happened. Each person was asked to take their bag of Lego, given 10 minutes to build the duck of how they would see the system that they wanted built, which was they wanted a loyalty management system built, and they were considering Dynamics to be the platform for that. They wanted, and so this is what the crazy thing, and this is where it kind of blew my mind at how tangible and how relevant it is that, one guy from IT built a real just solid brick of the items. And so when it came to him, he then explained why his duck looked like this. And he was like, this is the duck. And when I see the system, it needs to be rock solid. I don't want to be kind of fixing bits on it every 5 minutes. I want it to be robust. And it was like, it gave him the way to it. Now, if you say, how would he articulate that normally? There were ladies in the session that drew, didn't they built, this long skinny duck, and they give their version on how it would, wrap around the customer's lifestyle. Like, it allowed all these people to articulate ideas about how the software should be. One person built a real simple duck, and they just said, I want it to be simple. I don't want a manual to know how to make the system work, because we've got people in frontline stores, and just, and the customer needs to be it needs to be intuitive. And it gave all these type of words and phrases that you wouldn't normally see around, it needs to take their first and last name. It needs to have an email address and a unique identifier and
It's almost like a visual manifestation of the different opinions of 20 people, because he had 20 different looking ducks.
Yeah.
One of the things, let me Danny's asked a question that I think is worthy of an answer. How do you tell a client that what they want is shit?
How do you do it, Steve?
I do it all the time, but I don't ever tell them that what they want is shit. You know it's shit, and you know why it's shit. So you have to ask the questions around the edges of this pile of shit of the client in a non-confrontational way, to where ultimately, as they're answering these questions, because you've asked the right questions, they look in and they go, you know what, this is shit. So you don't tell them it's shit. You make them realize it's shit on their own. Because if you just go in and say this is shit, then you get a bunch of crossed arms and you don't get any progress at all, possibly get fired. We'll find somebody else. You're an asshole. But if you just ask questions about, so, you know, I've been in business a long time and this is a unique process I haven't seen before. Maybe you can unpack that a little bit. I did a couple things. One, I let them know this is fucking weird because I haven't seen it before, you know, but in a nice enough way that then they start unpacking their thing. And you just question each thing in a non-confrontational, you know. So let's unpack that a little bit to make sure I understand this handoff process from your call center to the salesperson. Explain that again.
Yeah.
And as they're explaining it, they're realizing their own problems. You know, I mean, you're just kind of shining a little light on something, say, can you explain that one to me a little more, and just so I understand. And they realize that what they want is shit.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not about telling them what they have is shit. It's about asking the right questions, leading them to their own conclusion that what they want is shit. Because once they reach the conclusion that what they want is shit, then they suddenly turn around and say, well, what do you think we should have? You know, then now you're open. Now you can really start telling them, well, if it were me, you know, I mean, if I were president of this company and, you know, basing my future success on this business, here are some things I would be doing, you know, but that's just me, you know. So there's definitely ways to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, I would have been of the opinion in the past to, you know, tell it how it is, so to speak, but you don't, I think one of the chaps in the call today, I was having a conversation a few weeks ago with him, and he was like, I don't like to play politics in business. And, you know, earlier in my career, I was very much the not into politics. And because I was skilled and had talent and brought results, I got away with kind of like take it or fuck off type thing.
Yeah.
What I learned, that's not a long-term strategy, right? I learned very quickly that making executives look bad because they're dumb and not being politically correct with them in the long term doesn't do you any favors, you know? And so there's an element in business, and like what you were saying there is really playing the consummate politician there, is you put things across that people can see their own idea forming out of it, and they come to their own conclusions and they own their conclusions. If you just abrasively tell them, well, that sucks, you suck, you know, it sucks, they're now in a position they have to defend their position. And so what they do is cement into that position rather than I suppose the biggest question I ask myself these days in anything that I'm involved in is, will this get me the outcome that I'm striving for, or will it allow me to let off steam now?
Yeah.
You know,
right.
is it moving the dial? And really, there's an amount of politics that makes up part of that journey and that story that's in play. And you've got to do it in business. I think what you just said there was right on the money, is that you've got to lead them to their conclusion that the idea is shit.
And, you know, a lot of it depends on what kind of business and where you're at. If in a business like mine, it's my own business. It's not a huge business. We've got plenty of work. So part of what I'm doing when I'm talking to customers is trying to decide if they're going to be a real pain in the ass later. Because if they are, I don't want to work with them. I'll send them down the road. And so if I'm trying to lead them to a conclusion and they keep going the wrong place, because they're just not getting it, I may just refer them out, because I can tell this is just going to be a unpleasant experience. But if you're on a sales team at a large company, well, you don't have that option. You can't just tell a customer to go pound sand, try calling somebody else. You know, you got to close every deal you can close, whether you like the customer, hate the customer, know this job is going to be a fucking nightmare. You got to close it anyway. You know, you got to close it anyway. So a lot of it depends on you know, on your position. I mean, you could still try and convince the client to reach the conclusion you want them to reach, you know, through questioning and other means, but the difference would be you may not have a choice but to close that deal anyway and deal with the consequence. Or you're a startup, brand new, and you just need to fucking work because you don't have a reputation, you don't have a referral base, you don't have enough customers. You kind of, I mean, that's when you know you've kind of reached success as a small business, when you reach that point where you can actually turn down work.
Yeah.
That that you know is not going to be profitable, that year, a few years earlier, you would have taken that job. It would have been unprofitable, but you would have had too much hope that maybe it will be profitable somehow because you need it to be. You know, all it really did was keep you busy, but it didn't do anything. You know.
Yeah. Art has said there, however, the business relationship starts, that's the best it'll ever be. What do you mean by that, Art? Do you think that you can't build a more positive experience over time, or do you think that it's just how the initial engagement starts?
Yeah, his second sentence there, if client makes you crazy in the first week, it's never going to get better, not worth the money.
100%. I agree with that.
I don't.
You
because
don't?
I've been able to pivot people that, you know, I mean, especially in that first phone call with the customer, and he's just a raging asshole. You know, it's just like you said, he's staking out his turf, he's pissing on the tree, letting everybody know who's boss. And you know what? I could very easily just say, you know, you're too much of an asshole to deal with and give up. But I'll work some other angles with that guy, get him to come around, start, you know, find some of his ideas I can support. You know, and I've had some of the best customers we've ended up with started out as the worst ones. You know, if you can turn that person from shit to, I mean, into somebody good, he's going to be a really good customer, even better than somebody that starts good. Because if they start good, it can only go downhill. You know.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily give up on a client that makes me crazy in the first week. I would be working on trying to pivot him around to, you know, not being crazy with me.
Yeah.
There's people out there that are just flaming assholes, and that's their whole, you know, we know some people even in our industry and even some of the MVP leads that are just flaming assholes that you know, are unrecoverable, unredeemable.
Yeah.
But
I can only think once in my entire career where I sat at a boardroom where basically the client was on the one side of the boardroom table in a line. It was one dude with his two minions each side. And there was me, you know, directly opposite him. I had two people to my left and two people to right. So there were 5 on our side, 3 on his. And that guy was, he was the head of IT of a major insurer in New South Wales. And he was an absolute in the extreme cunt in how he engaged and just absolute condescending type of thing. And that is the only time in my life that I took it on the chin, what he was saying. And all my colleagues afterwards were like, wow, that guy was a total, but I really wish that I had unloaded all the guns on this guy. Like, I've dreamed of doing that so many times since, because his staff were embarrassed by him. You know, you could see them cringing and going in their mind, what a total wanker, you know, that this guy is. And I tell you, I've played that over and over in my mind since, and how I just wish I'd stood up and said, well, fuck you, and said, guys, we're out. And it would have just been the craziest, you know. But of course, hindsight's 2020. Would have I done it even today? You know, I would do it today because the client, you know, went nowhere. And so, but of course, when you're in a large company with 1,800 odd staff, you know, if that had got back to executives, that's the way you had dealt with a prospective customer.
Well,
I
you
don't
know,
think that would have been acceptable.
You said it didn't go anywhere, but it went somewhere with somebody. I mean, there was somebody got something out of it, you know, and
this was a migration from Dynamics on-prem to the cloud.
And
it was back in that days where, you know, you had to fight for every Microsoft cloud deal because everyone was like, oh, it's not safe. You know, where all our data, all that kind of BS that made the early days of moving. And they had something like 5 terabyte of data, and how were we going to rationalize that out and stuff like that, which was all manageable. And we did it with a lot of their competitors. But I was pleased that this company never came onto our books. Because you could tell that was the toxic leadership model that they had running in that business.
No, there definitely is toxic clients that will stay toxic, and it's a lot of ego involved. Did you freeze again? No, you're still moving.
No, I've been called out for my C-bomb.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Well,
Norm.
yeah, I think that's probably a little more common in New Zealand as just a turn of phrase than it is elsewhere in the world. It's a little bit, what do you say?
Yeah. See, in Australia in business, it was just,
It's like,
it was
damn.
like, yeah, you said it every day. Like, if, you know, it was every day. You know, here's the funny thing. One of my sign-offs to my MVP show is typically that in code, but nobody's ever pulled me up on it. I always say, I always end with, see you next time. And it's kind of like I have this little internal laugh to myself, but nobody's pulled me up on it.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
No, I think
crazy.
that client relation, I mean, that's frankly, most of my day is talking to customers, usually new customers. And, you know, it's usually one of these, they're going to get like 12 people on a call to talk about every single thing they freaking need. And it's really trying to take all of that stuff and, okay, let me distill that down into, first of all, I got to figure out what product is going to solve those things. And it's not obvious. I got to figure out what license we potentially are going to have to stand up on to solve all these problems. And so it's a lot of, it definitely is a lot of, I'll tell you what, I think that if you put yourself, which I find a lot of salespeople are not able to do, if you put yourself in the role of the advocate for that customer, which means we don't talk about money. I don't start hammering you on hours and talking about, well, that's probably going to take a lot of, you know, I mean, it's too early. I mean, you just come across right in the early conversation that all you're worried about is the money, and all you're worried about is the time, and all you're worried about is, you know, making sure they're going to spend enough money or do enough stuff. And, you know, clients can smell that shit a mile away, and you just lost that whole thing. But if you could put yourself in the role of that an advocate for that client, have them, by saying things that may not necessarily always be in your best interest, like, you know, talking them out of some piece of work that would, you know, generate some nice fees. I'll talk them out of a nice piece of work, and they'll realize that, wow, this guy could have just hosed us for a bunch of money here, but then he talked us out of it. Frankly, that changes the whole dynamic with that customer, the whole dynamic. And at that point, then you can kind of do almost anything with them at that point, you know?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, look at that. John Cordone saying Steve getting naked. And of course, that's the book, Getting Naked, around client consulting. And that you know, what you just described there is exactly on point, that, you know, you start doing the work. You don't chase the money straight away. And, you know, I've been with Microsoft folks in the room where that's the only question or contribution they have made. I'm talking about Microsoft salespeople. How many seats? How many seats? Oh, how many people are we licensing for this? Like, hang on, we're at meeting number 1. I know you're wanting to go back and update your spreadsheet with how big this deal is, but let's just back it out, because you've just come across as rotten.
Too many people do that, and it's just hardwired. Salespeople, especially, I think, you know, if they're on quota, they're driven to try and close. And I'm a big believer in always be closing, but there's a way to always be closing, and it isn't, you know, by shoving a contract in front of somebody, ready to sign. You know, that's just all that's doing. It's so you know, getting naked. It's making yourself freaking naked in front of the customer when you do that. You know, I know you're a big book reader. You read, like, I don't know, 5 books a week or something. I don't think I've read a business book in 15 years.
Here's the thing, right? I started this year. I've currently read 15 books this year. And that was in January, February. It wasn't even all of February. That was just January and half of February. I'd done 15 books. I haven't read anything since this whole COVID-19 thing has gone down. I just can't
be reading.
I know, right? Heaps of people are reading. I can't concentrate. I can't stay with it. I'm looking forward to, you know, coming out of it, because I'm hungry to get back into it. But at the moment, you know, I just don't have the motivation or the desire. I've got 2 books that authors have asked me to read and review, because I review everything I read pretty much on Amazon. I got 2 outstanding, a third one coming through, and I'm just like, I just don't feel like reading at the moment. And it's just a space that I'm in at the moment. It will change. It'll, this too will pass, as I think the whole COVID-19 thing will, and I'll get back to reading again. But yeah, that's where that Getting Naked, it's on the 90-day mentoring challenge. I encourage, it's one of the first books I get everybody to read, to really to understand what consulting is all about, outside of the technology.
I guess I've just been doing it long enough that I go based on having stepped in every pothole along the way and recognize the pothole now.
Yeah, so true, so true.
Well,
we're coming up on time, Steve.
We've destroyed it. We've destroyed another hour of these poor people's times.
It's good. It's a good chat. Good topics.
Mowing the lawn. They could have been making lemonade. They could have been doing so much more valuable things, but they chose to sit here and listen to us. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah. Listen, if you want to be updated, like and subscribe. We will, be doing this again next week. Only if you hit the bell when you hit subscribe will you get notified of when these sessions are coming out. They're all scheduled sessions, same time each week. So please do that. If you're watching it on the playback and you've got questions that you want us to address on air, various folks constantly are sending questions through that if, appropriate, we get them on air, or, sometimes I want to remain anonymous where that comes from. Please do that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again. Hopefully, we'll see you in the Hack4Good or MBAS virtual, something like that. Stay safe and see you around.
Bye.